What's up? What's up to all my spiritual and holistic family, my conscious brothers and sisters, gods and goddesses? How is everybody on this fine Saturday? Today's Saturday, right? Saturday afternoon. Hopefully, you guys are having an amazing week. Hopefully, you have been integrating mind, body, and spirit, holistic integration to have the most fulfilled life you can possibly have. And as you can see today, I am here with you and you can see me and hear me at the same time. So I definitely want to start to incorporate more of that visual to go with the audio for the visual for the visual learner, as well as the audio, and I'll be starting a YouTube channel. So I'm super excited. So thank you guys so much for joining me here on this podcast, Holistic and Spiritual as Fuck. This is episode 5. We are going strong. We are growing, getting more listeners. This podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, and possibly some other platforms here in the near future. YouTube will be coming up. And I'm also on TikTok now, as well as Instagram and Facebook as Holistic and Spiritual as Fuck. And on Instagram, Holistic and Spiritual as Fuck Podcast. I'll have all those links down in the description, guys. But anyway, now that we've gotten all that business out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into today's topic, okay? I'm super excited to be talking to you guys today about shadow work, okay? What is shadow work? I know a lot of you guys have heard me bringing that up in some of the past episodes, and I wanted to kind of dive into that because that is a very important topic. If you are on a healing journey of some sort, if you're wanting to go deeper into the transformational healing aspect of your healing, shadow work is something you're going to come across. It may be something that you come across intentionally, and it may be something that you are experiencing the byproducts of because of maybe ignoring some past traumas and latent things that need to be healed that are coming to the surface, and you don't know why and you don't know what it is. So I wanted to definitely talk about that with you guys today. But before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys a little bit about who I am, give some creds and some credibility so that you know that I am fully qualified to be talking to you guys about the things that I'm talking to you about. Okay, so I am titled as a Reiki master. I've been a Reiki master now for, without dating myself, let's just say I got attuned and initiated in level 3 of Reiki, which is the highest that you can go, in 2015. Around the same time in 2015, I also got initiated into level 1 of Qigong, Supreme Science Qigong, which the two kind of go hand in hand. So I have this gift of energy work. Okay, I'd been a massage therapist from about 2010, and then of course I got into level 1 and level 2 throughout the years, and went ahead and completed to Reiki master level in 2015 because it was something that was innately natural for me. I used to always get some of my massage clients that would just tell me, like, your massages are extremely different. Like something about it, like, oh my gosh, your hands heat up. You've got this energy about you, and it would shift things in people's energy fields. And so I went on to start to work with that and begin to have the ability to work with not only with my own healing spirit guides that are highly ascended, but also the healing guides of the other people that I was working with. And I had this whole little process that I would go through before I started to massage anybody. Like, I don't care if it was just like for back pain, or if it was, your legs are stiff because you stand all day, whatever it was. I went through this whole process and this ritual, so to speak, before I worked with each person, where I would kind of clear myself and become this conduit to facilitate healing in other people. I like to be very clear about that. I am not like the type of healer that's laying hands on people and doing this stuff myself, but I'm actually a conduit. I'm being used by the Most High, by the Creator, by the spirit guides, by other people's ancestors, and I'm just kind of the vessel that's being used. So I would keep myself clear and attuned a certain way. That's why I eat a certain way, do my own spiritual practices as well, to always make sure that I am the best vessel that I could be. So getting into that energy healing, of course, allowed me access to start to work on myself and start to heal myself in a lot of different areas. I had gone through lots of trauma as a kid. I had gone through lots of sexual trauma. I had gone through, even into early adulthood, I had gone through a lot of different emotional traumas, depression, all the stuff that kind of comes with a life of trauma. Okay. So there was a lot of healing that was necessary for me to get to the next phase of my life. Okay. I got into traditional African spirituality about all of this was kind of around the same time when you think about it. I think it was like maybe 2014, 2015. So like that was like a big time for me to really go like die hard deep into self-healing. So I kind of had to pull back a little bit and take a break from working with others. I mean, I still would do things here and there with massage therapy, Reiki healing, and things like that. But it kind of turned the corner and became more about my personal healing. Okay. Because I truly believe that facilitator of healing is only able to heal to the capacity that they themselves have been healed. Okay, so this is why I'm bringing all of this up, is because if you're working with someone who's an energy healer, or they are making these claims to be someone who can facilitate healing, it would behoove you to find out like the work that they've actually done on themselves. And most of the healers that I know, they've been through a lot of shit. Okay, like I feel like healers and empaths, they like really go through a lot more shit to be able to um, take on what it is that other people come to them with. So you may find people, if you're an empath or a healer, you may find people that just really open up to you and start telling you all this different stuff about themselves, and or people who just like, oh, they want to be around you. You've got this type of energy that people want to be around, or people who tell you some really effed up stuff. And once you've heard a lot and seen a lot and been through a lot yourself, it's not too much that can kind of ruffle your feathers and have you judge this person in the wrong way. And I think that all healers need to be like that, because that's kind of what it's about, being a healer. And then of course that can branch off to all different types of things on the journey. It can go into herbal healing, it can go into the roots, it can go into traditional African spirituality, it can go into shamanism. The journey is absolutely amazing, and that's why I love holistic and spiritual wellness so much. Because of what it's done for me in my life, but also what I've seen it be able to do for other people in their lives, both physical, mental, emotional, and helping them to really heal a lot of traumas in their lives that some people may not be able to get any other way. Not everybody has access to getting a psychotherapy or a therapist, which I'm also a advocate for, because I think that that is also, if you're able to do that, is also very beneficial in the healing journey. Like any type of healing that you can get, especially on an energetic level, is going to have impact in all areas of your life. Okay, so that is who I am. I'm an energy healer. I tapped into my gift, and that's what I work with. And I kind of pulled back from the scenes quite a bit, because there was a massive amount of shadow work that I had to do within myself. So when I was going through it in the beginning, I had no idea that it was actually shadow work. Okay, so I was doing all kinds of stuff. I was doing Reiki, I was going to classes, I was learning things, I was implementing these things, I was doing tantra, I was like, it was just a lot of different things. I was raising my kundalini, I was practicing yoga all the time, I was doing qigong for myself, I was having other practitioners work on me. So that is why I coined myself the title holistic practitioner. And holistic practitioner, I think a lot of times people think, oh, she's a holistic doctor. What it really means is that someone who is a practicer, or someone who practices holistic living, holistic lifestyle, holistic healing, holistic medicine, and things like that, whether that be for themselves or whether that be for other people. But they do have some sort of experience, and they have some sort of track record of living this lifestyle. Okay. So when you're on this journey of spiritual and holistic healing, it's very important to know that there's no straight line as to how it's supposed to go. And also, there's no one way of doing it. Okay. So you don't want to get so caught up into like the book aspect of it, or the things that you learn from books, because those tools are things to be used as a guide to kind of get you started. And then you kind of go into your own practice and your own journey of the whole thing. So, it's very important to know that it's not a straight line, and it doesn't look the same for everyone. Okay. So now this is me coming back into being that holistic practitioner for others again, which I think is amazing. I'm very grateful to be able to do it. I'm also grateful to be doing it now and not back in 2015 and 16, because it was a lot of things going on in the regards to shadow work. Okay, so let's talk about shadow work a little bit, what it is, and how the benefits of it, as well as how you can start to incorporate that into your life, if that is the phase that you're ready to go into, or maybe if you're facing some areas of your life that need to be healed, that you are like, I'm not ready for this, I don't know what to do. So we're going to talk about that. Okay, so since I have my visuals here, guys, I'm going to just switch over here. You won't be able to see this, but these are kind of my notes. So we want to talk about how the inner you can affect you. So like before we go there, let me go ahead and back over here. I think I'd flow better when I'm just not doing that. So shadow work, let's give Z's holistic practitioner, guided by the spirit guides answer of that. Okay. So we all have this part of ourselves. Okay. We have the light, the good part, our best attributes, our best qualities, our gifts and our talents that we want everybody to see. And we want people to see, here comes the cat, guys. Oh no, she's gonna turn off the computer. um yeah, so we have this parts of ourselves where we want people to see a certain aspect of ourselves, and that's what we show the world. You know, we can consider that as a mask. Okay, we want everybody to see the perfect side of us. We don't ever want anybody to see us crying. We don't want anybody to see us too mad. We don't want anybody to see us when we're not looking great. So we put on these different masks and we put on these different personas in different places. Like at work, we're different than we are at home. Like when we're in the grocery store, when we're around family, when we're around certain friends, church members, spiritual community members, we put on these different masks and we show people these things. However, there's another side of us, especially if we're adults, that has in the subconscious things that have happened to us, okay, based on how we were raised, the things that we were around, the experiences that we had. And a lot of them can be negative. You know, not all of them are good. They could, some be good, and even to a fault where everything was so perfect that there was no room for error. And that then created some sort of other type of disorder, okay? So there's these aspects in our subconscious that causes us to behave a certain way, okay? And I like to call them survival skills, okay? So we've learned how to behave in a certain way based on past traumas because we really didn't have time to deal with that. We had to get on with the business of living. Guys, I'm super comfortable, so I'm going to go ahead and stretch that leg out. The benefits of being a yogi, super flexible, right? Um, so we really didn't have time to work on that aspect of our healing. So we just kind of, you know, worked on a survival skill, like I'm just going to cover it up, or you know what, I just don't really want to talk about that, and those types of things. But essentially, if you want to get to a deeper level of healing, you're going to have to address some of these things, right? Because they could be coming out in different ways, okay? They could be being triggered by certain things. And once you're on the healing journey, it's kind of like peeling back layers of an onion, or it's like a lotus beginning to blossom. So as you get deeper and deeper into it, you're going to start to touch the surface of some of these old childhood past traumas, or something that happened to you in your first marriage, or how your dad used to treat you or your mom used to talk to you. Those things are going to come up, and you're going to have to find a way, if you want to be a holistic version of yourself, to be able to start to heal those. And that's why a lot of times we say that shadow work can be intense. Shadow work can be painful, depending on the severity and the level and degree of the trauma that you received. Okay. So let me talk about a breakthrough and give you guys an example of some shadow work that I just recently started to go into over the past Mercury retrograde. Okay. So here I am, you know, walking into the Mercury retrograde, like, okay, it's a little off. People are acting crazy. What's going on? Must be a retrograde, right? You know, I'm in tune with energy. I'm conscious like that. So I picked up on that right away. So I'm like, okay, well, let me go ahead and just align myself and govern myself accordingly, stay out of people's way, get to journaling and go internal, right? Then all of a sudden, I have this 1 week throughout that Mercury retrograde where I'm feeling a lot of old emotions, a lot of past traumas that I'm like, I can't believe I'm actually experiencing this right now, because this stuff is old stuff. I'm talking about, this is stuff I haven't thought about. We're talking high school stuff. We're talking about things when I was a little kid, like 7 years old. So make a long story short, let's jump to the beginning, and then we're going to rewind and backtrack. Jump to the end and then rewind and backtrack. So at the end of this, one of the things that I got, breakthroughs that I got from this Mercury retrograde and this shadow work that I was doing, was I let go of the need to be validated by others. Oh my gosh. Okay. Breakthrough. That shit is powerful, guys. Okay. Powerful. Something that seems so simple, right? That has been taking a hold of me in a lot of different areas of my life, that has been causing me to act in all different types of survival skills. Okay. So I let go of the need to be validated by others and began to be comfortable with myself as I am, recognizing my gifts, my abilities, and also paying attention to areas that may need to be tweaked, that I could work on, that, hey, I need to start healing that. And it just gave me this sense of freedom, guys, and like peace, like you would not believe. And it allowed me to align things within my business. It allowed me to line stuff with my purpose. It allowed me to be able to open up a whole like gate of power. You know what I'm saying? Like power, where I was like working with my ancestors and working with the roots and working with God. And I mean, it just gave me so much freedom. But you know what? I wanted to dissect that even further, okay? Because I go deep. You know, your girl goes deep. I wanted to dissect that even further and be like, okay, so where did this come from in the beginning? Okay, like where in the world did this need to be validated come from in the first place? That way I can make sure that this same repeated pattern and paradigm doesn't continue to resurface. Okay, so I had to go all the way back to childhood. Okay, and so my brother and my sister are like 7 and 9 years older than me. Okay, so by the time I was like 7 years old, my sister was like 14, my brother was like 16, you know, and so I was pretty much like an only child. You know, I play by myself. You know, I had my ancestors, I would talk to them, and, you know, I would play with dolls and, you know, have this whole like imaginary world. I had vivid dreams. You know, there was a lot going on with me as a kid. But because I was the baby and I was like so far out of the way, nobody really paid attention to me. I mean, I was taken care of, my needs were met and things like that. But nobody really took the time to say, you know, what are Zipporah's gifts? You know, like, you know, I wonder what's Zipporah. It was just kind of like I was thrown in the bunch, and I was never really paid attention to. Okay, so now fast forward on up all the way to my life, like, you know, in high school, same thing. I was like the kid that kind of blended in. I didn't really stand out. I didn't really fall behind. I was just, you know, in the mix and in the bunch. I was pretty quiet. I was a book reader, things like that. You know, I go on to learn how to live my life to kind of stay out of the way. Now, my saving grace, I always say this in high school, was I was a singer. I had a gift of being able to sing and sing really well. And I was singing since I was like 3 years old. So it was like a natural gift. Okay. And every time I sang was like the only time I got like attention. And so in high school, that kind of like put me on the map, right? Like everybody was like, "Oh, girl, Zipporah can sing. That girl can sing," you know? So that gave me some sort of attention, you know, from other people, and that I desperately craved for. Okay. So that was positive attention, right? Now go ahead and fast forward that up into my adult life. I found myself sometimes being a bit of an overachiever, always wanting to say, kind of like have this energy of, look at me, look at me, look at what I did. You know, somebody give me praise for this. Somebody, you know, somebody look at me and tell me I did a good job. You know, I like really thrived off of other people's praise for me about things that I had done or something that I had accomplished, or I needed that from others, but I wasn't really getting that from inside of me. Okay. Now, mind you, this goes all the way back to that little kid who was like basically an only child, who played by herself, who nobody really ever paid attention to, who finally got some attention as a kid, you know, as a teenager by singing, went on to do some amazing things in my early adult life, even with the traumas that was there at an early age, and got a lot of praise, but it was never enough. I was always seeking for that validation from someone else. I was always seeking to have praise coming from the outside of me, okay? Not thinking that was going to be a problem. So now here we are, fast forward up to this past Mercury retrograde that was between May and June, early part of June of this year. And I'm just going through some root work, and poof, pop, this thing just comes out. Why? Because it had always been stored in my subconscious. It had never gone anywhere. Why? Because it hadn't been healed. It hadn't been addressed. It was just kind of hanging out there like, hey, we're going to wait on you to figure it out, or we're just going to keep on acting out in different ways. Now, I picked this experience because this is one that is probably not so not so severe. It could have had severe consequences depending on how I chose to act out. And I'm sure there were some times when I got attention in a negative way that was stemming from this. Okay. So to be able to work through this, to be able to meditate on it, be doing the root work that I was doing, working with my ancestors, praying to God, receiving these answers through meditation and prayer, like I talked about in the previous episode, then I'm able to say, aha, breakthrough. I don't need to have validation from others or things outside of me. I need to be comfortable and feel whole with inside of myself and heal whatever is blocking me from that. Okay, so that's an example of shadow work. Okay, a real in-depth and example of shadow work on something that's not so severe. Now, if you're wanting to get more into the deeper side of transformational healing, you can either choose to say, okay, Find something about yourself that is a way that you act negatively. And let's say you get angry all the time. Let's say you got a hot temper. Let's say you get real mad about things like slightly. Let's say you have a real authoritarian type of attitude where it has to be this and it's got to be this way, my way or no way. And you may want to look into that and be like, hey, where's this coming from? Perhaps maybe you grew up as a child where you weren't able to really say anything in your household. Maybe your household was like, it's my way or no way. Kids don't get to express themselves and that's it. And so now you decide that you are going to be that leader when in actuality you're being domineering and dominant, and in the negative quality of that. So that will be the shadow side of a leader, because a leader needs to be someone who's confident, who is sure of themselves, who can get people to do what it is that they want them to do and need them to do, but in a positive way, where they actually attract people or influence people, but not by being domineering and forceful. So that's an example of something that may be some shadow work that you need to work on. Let's go ahead and take it to something maybe more severe. Okay, let's talk about sexual trauma. You hear me talk about that a lot. That's near and dear, close to my heart, and we'll do another episode on that as well. But let's just go to sexual trauma. A lot more people experience sexual trauma than you could possibly imagine. And that goes for men and women. That goes for girls and boys. A lot of times we talk about what happens to girls and we just completely leave out boys. And I actually know more men who were sexually abused as boys than girls. Okay, so that's how prevalent it is and just kind of brushed under the rug for boys. But the bottom line is that could definitely severely change something in your subconscious. Okay, it could have you acting out in a variety of different ways. Okay, it could have you acting out in a sexual deviant way. It could have you acting out in a perverted way. It could have you maybe withdrawn and closed off from sex and sexual experiences. It may have you having unhealthy sexual ideas and experiences and repeating these same patterns inside of your life, repeatedly and repetitively, and you feel like you're on this cycle and you don't know how to get off. Okay, so shadow work would be very, very beneficial. Now, in this type of shadow work, because this is very deep and this is intense work, especially if you're not used to doing this type of healing work, I would definitely suggest getting some outside help from that with someone who is possibly a holistic practitioner, because they're going to be able to help you and to guide you through that. You could also work with an energy healer, someone who can help you to balance and restore the different energy fields that are inside of your body. When I say energy fields, I mean things like your chakras. I mean things like your meridians. That's a whole nother podcast right there. So you guys will hear me throughout these podcasts kind of shout out these terms. And some of you may be fully aware of what they are. Some of you may not have a clue. Just know that I'll follow it up, as I start to speak to you guys and I find out, where you guys are, where my listeners are, then I'll go ahead and do some follow-ups with that. And then of course, keep in mind, like I said, we're coming up on the experts that'll also be bringing their expertise in as well. So these will be people who, like, say for instance, that's all they help people with. They help people to heal with sexual trauma. That's all they help people with, is to help people with their energy healing, things like that. Okay, so you may need to work with someone who is an energy healer that can help you to align your chakras, that can help you to align the energy centers, that can help you to clear and remove things that are blocking the flow of energy in that area, to assist you in being able to flow through and move through and break through these different areas of your life that need to be healed. Okay, so shadow work is very, very intense. Okay, now that I've given my breakdown of it, which I'm actually proud of that, guys, because I find myself a lot of times, I do a prayer and I also go to my ancestors and I say, hey, you know what, guide me, guys, and let your energy and your words flow through me so that I'm reaching people in an impactful way that's coming from the heart. I like to not be so caught up on reading things, because it sometimes can put ideas in your mind that may not be your own. And I feel like when spirit is speaking through you, let them do what they do. Okay, so now let me go ahead and give you guys some of the benefits. Let's just talk about how your inner shadow affects you. Okay, your inner shadow side can have a negative impact on your well-being when you ignore it or reject it. So when you have these negative traits and these behaviors that continuously come up and you just like, oh, that's just me, I'm an Aries, I'm pretty loud and I'm dominant and those types of things, and you don't do anything about it, it can kind of fester, so to speak, in your energy field and your spirit and become a problem. Okay. So there's a part of yourself that's craving to be understood and explored. Okay. So don't ignore it and reject it. Say, just start looking into that, especially if it keeps popping up repetitively. You want to look at it and say, what the heck are you trying to tell me? What is it that I need to be paying attention to? You know? Okay. Basically, if you ignore it and shame throughout your life, if it was ignored and possibly shame throughout your life, even if it was less dramatic, we don't feel mentally and emotionally at our best when our shadow is not integrated into self, which is to say, when the shadow and self are far apart. When you ignore it, your shadow will find ways to make you aware that it exists. Okay. So, and this can come on through the form of things like self-loathing. Now, this is going to sound really familiar to some people who possibly thought that, hey, I don't have any problems with this. Self-loathing, excuse me, guys. Throat chakra is closed today. Poor self-esteem. This is a lot of people that I know. These are things that I felt myself at many different times. Okay, that's another thing. These things can pop up sometimes. These things could be a repeated pattern. Okay, so self-loathing, poor self-esteem, self-deceit, and deceiving others. Okay, we know liars. We've lied ourselves. Okay, anxiety and depression. That's a huge one. That one right there. That's a whole nother episode on its own right there. But anxiety and depression, a lot of people deal with. I know that I dealt with my fair share of depression in my life. Okay. Offensive behavior towards others, struggling to have healthy relationships with others. How many people have a hard time in every single relationship that they're in? It's always the other person's fault, right? If you're consistently struggling to have healthy relationships with other people, there's some shadow work there that's going to need to be addressed before you can have a healthy relationship with anybody. And that's a fact. So you can ignore it if you want to, but then just go ahead and plan on being pretty lonely and always having these chaotic, dramatic relationships with people where it's always their fault. Okay. So self-sabotage, where you have good things happening for you, but oh, you know what? I'm not good enough for that. You know, that can't happen to me. That happens to other people. Self-absorption, maybe being too ego. It's all about me. That's a form of shadow, your shadow self, or an inflated ego, which is pretty much the same as the other. So when you reject your shadow, you also start projecting onto others. Okay, this is very, very powerful. So, like I just said, it's not my fault. It's so and so did this, so and so did that. I remember a time when all of my relationships they ended tragically, and the reason was because it was always their fault. Somebody didn't do this, or he wasn't that, or it was just this one component right there that he didn't have. Until I started to finally look at myself and my part into it. So the past few, like, breakups or going our separate ways, we still talk to each other. We're still friends. We can just, agree that, hey, it didn't necessarily work out between us. And that's a healthy relationship. Okay. Let's see. Projection happens when you see things in others that you subconsciously recognize within yourself. How powerful is that? Oh, I can't stand her. You know what? That bee gets on my nerves. You know what? She's always doing this. She's always doing that. If you stop to look at what it is you're projecting onto other people, I guarantee you what you can't stand about them is inside of you. Okay. So these parts, when you recognize them in other people, make you feel uncomfortable. And as a result, you seek to judge and punish others who reflect those traits. Now, let's go ahead and say that again. So those parts that you see about other people, when you start to project your shit onto them, make you feel uncomfortable. And as a result, you seek to judge or punish others who reflect those traits. Okay, see, we don't want to be like that, guys. We don't want to be that guy at all. Let's go ahead and be the healed version of ourselves. Let's be the holistic version of ourselves where we actually have whole relationships, where we're able to be accountable for our actions and responsible for them. But before we can get there, we have to do the work, guys. Okay. So that's kind of a big part about what Holistic and Spiritual as Fuck podcast is about, is actually teaching you guys ways that you can incorporate holistic wellness into your life, where you can incorporate healing into your life. Okay. So you hopefully, as each episode comes along, you begin to create a spiritual and holistic toolkit that can be used no matter what religion, no matter what path of spirituality that you're on, but that you can start to integrate some of these things to begin to live a whole, well-rounded life. Okay, it's going to help you in all areas of your life. Okay, we hear people talking about creating generational wealth and manifesting things. Well, you can't do that without clearing your shit up first, okay? Without cleaning your house first, okay? So that's how powerful shadow work is. And I hope that you guys got some value out of this. I want to see if there's anything else I can add in here. I know I'm on a time limit with this. So I want to make sure that I'm getting all of this information into you. So we talked about some of the different ways that shadow work can show up, if it's untreated. Okay. um, let's talk about what is shadow work. And we basically talked about that a little bit. We talked about my version of it, which is very similar to this. Mine came from Spirit. This came from betterup.com, which I was actually surprised to find such accurate information from them. So that's why I'm using this. So shadow work meaning is as follows: working with your unconscious mind, which is your subconscious, to uncover the parts of yourself that you repress and hide from yourself. This can include trauma or parts of your personality that you subconsciously consider undesirable, okay? So we talked about that. Okay, this is the mask that we put on. We're working with that. We're working with the mask, and you don't have to do this in front of other people. You can do this on your own, or if you're working with severe trauma and things like that, it will behoove you to work with someone else who can help to guide you through that, and also help you with other tools such as energy healing and realignment, and recentering things. Okay, so anyone can do shadow work on their own. However, consider seeking out a it says licensed therapist or treatment. I say find someone who's experienced and has a track record, especially if you suffer from severe trauma. Let's face it, some people's trauma is a lot more severe than others. I mean, if you had a war life childhood, definitely get the licensed therapist too. Okay, in conjunction with actually a spiritual team of people who can assist you. So the goal of shadow work is not to flaw or mistake. Instead, it's about developing your self-awareness and ultimately self-acceptance and compassion. Shadow work is often both with therapy and more spiritual, helping you to see the different parts of yourself. Okay. So I like this part here where it says self acceptance and compassion, because that's very important too when doing this work. And that's all I'm going to get from this, guys, here. Self acceptance and compassion is also very crucial in working with shadow work. Okay. Because it's going to bring up some unpleasant aspects and things that you've been hiding from, that you didn't want to see, that you didn't want to talk about, that you didn't want anybody to know about. So there's that initial painful part. There may be some tears. There may be some screaming in pillows. There may be some, punching on something, finding healthy outlets and ways to, like, punching bag or punching on a pillow, crying, journaling, things like that in the beginning. But accepting that these things happen, accepting that they have been a part of your life, but healing and working through that so that you can grow past that. In doing so, that trauma no longer has the same power over you. You begin to heal through it. You don't, it doesn't go anywhere. Let's face it, it happened. It took its place. It had its position in your life and affected you the way that it did, but it no longer has to continue to affect you like that. You no longer have to project that shit onto other people, because a lot of times, who do we project that on the most? And that's the people that are closest to us. That's our partners, that's our children, that's our parents, that's our workmates. We don't want to be that guy or that woman. We want to kind of grow into our God and goddess selves. We want to be our full version of ourselves, even if that includes some of those imperfect parts of ourselves. But we want to be accepting as well as compassionate with ourselves as well. That's very, very important as well, because you want to make sure you're not beating yourself up and creating more depression and more anxiety, but actually healing through it and recognizing that was the unhealed version of you. Okay. So that's basically what shadow work is in a nutshell. I know I said a lot on that, and we could actually have a part 2 on that, but I would prefer to have someone else come in with their expertise to give their perspective as well. So hopefully you guys got some value out of this. Once again, be sure to follow this podcast. Go ahead and rate it 5 stars if you enjoyed what you heard today. Check out the details at the bottom of this, as well as for the links, as well as any questions. I love hearing you guys' answer, because it helps to motivate me as to what it is that you need, how we can continue the discussion going further. So that's it, guys. Until the next episode. Peace.